and welcome to I Protest. It's Donald Jeffries. We have Dr. Leonard Horowitz here. Multiple awards as an author, filmmaker, energy medicine pioneer, and he's pioneered the fields of frequency therapeutics and electroceuticals, featuring especially the 528 frequencies of sound and light. And a lot of my audience, and I've had a couple shows on this about the effective electronic rays and so forth on health, and so he's going to talk something about that. But he's also going to talk about he's been a critic of COVID and so forth. So really glad to have him here. Welcome to the show, Dr. Horowitz.
Thank you, Don.
I'm fascinated by your work. So I don't know what you want to talk about first. I know you want to concentrate more about the 528 stuff, but what would you like to talk about first?
I think 528 is a wonderful opportunity for the planet to be aware of. So if you want to go there, it's great for natural healing.
Okay, that's great. Okay, yeah. Okay, well, let's. And I've had a couple of people I think that are in the chat are actually victims of that. In terms of the electronic frequencies and everything. How does that relate to this? I understand 528 is it's a certain thing you discovered in musical notes or something. Tell me about that.
Yeah. Well, 1998, there was a doctor, colleague, friend of mine, Dr. Joseph Paleo in northern Idaho, that was searching for the original musical scale to which the hymn to St. John the Baptist was sung and chanted. And through divine revelation, Joey was able to decrypt a section of the Bible that laid out the original musical scale. And so the third note is the miracle note. Today it's do, re, mi, and it used to be ut, re, mi. And the mi stands for miragistorum in Latin, miracles in English. So the miracle note of the original musical scale to which the most spiritually uplifting hymn of all the ages was sung, the hymn to St. John the Baptist, the miracle note is 528. So that's what started me. I published the book Healing Codes for the Biological Apocalypse. And that's what we're facing now with COVID and a variety of other infectious diseases, lab viruses, creations, bioweapons, gain of functions, bioweapons. And what's necessary, as I just published in a scientific peer-reviewed publication, is my first biotechnology science publication. I've had dozens and dozens of scientific publications, peer-reviewed publications in medicine and fields of natural healing and energy medicine, but I never had a biotechnology article accepted after peer review, and it just came out. I can send you a copy of it. It's delightful. It basically explains why 528 is the universal natural healing constant, so that all natural healing actually depends on 528. And the good news is that you can play it, you can listen to it, you can beam it in color at yourself, you can have therapy, self-therapy, and create clinical devices for therapy, and you can even play music with it and transpose music, as I've done with 528radio.com. That's my personal station. 528radio.com plays music that's been transposed into this therapeutic frequency. Now, the selections of tracks therein are pretty much my favorites ones over the many years. So that if you don't like commercials, like I don't, there's no commercials on it. It's just my favorite tracks from various genres of music.
Give us an example of is there anything from popular music that we would know? Would we recognize any of them?
Oh, you would recognize most of them, yeah. Even though they're many of them are old. There's classic rock, a variety of classic rock, various genres, oldies, classic, oldies, blues, folk, rock, country. It's really a broad spectrum of genres that are being played right now. And beyond that, I publish a medical journal. I'm the editor-in-chief of medicalveritas.org, and these articles that are fascinating are in the 528 section. There's a menu there that you can download and download a variety of different articles. I'm not the only one that's published in this field now. It's exploded internationally. The use of 528 frequency has been now shown independently to boost natural immunity, antioxidant activity by 100%, just the pure tone. It increases testosterone activity and levels. It increases protection against chemical damage of nerve cells. So these are some of the publications that other investigators have published in peer-reviewed journals, and I'm just very thankful to have brought it to the world.
Well, give us an example, because I mean, I've noticed over my lifetime, I think we all have. Where I mean, I love oldies, I love classic rock, but I love a lot of music. But I that's my go-to, I'll hear certain songs, and they will really affect my mood and uplift me. And is that what, or is it only certain ones? Like for instance, I still in the summer, if I turn on the Beach Boys, I mean that's gonna give me a certain adrenaline rush or something. Is that what you're talking about, or is that just because I like them?
Yeah, there's many Beach Boy tracks. Beach Boys are among my favorites too for classic pop and rock. So that's you'll hear a number of Beach Boy tracks. But let me give you a great example. Stairway to Heaven. Mm-hmm. That track is really fantastic. It's classic and it's one of the most monumental tracks. So Led Zeppelin actually produced it originally in 528 frequency. And some of the music was produced, some of the artists, such as even John Lennon, another classic, monumental track called Imagine. Mm-hmm. John Lennon apparently went through the efforts to either tune his white piano to 528, which you do by retuning your strings to A444. That gives you the base of the scale, which is C. The scale is C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. That's the octave. Well, that starts with 528 when you tune to A444. That's a little difficult to wrap your head around. It takes a little while to get used to that because it's scaled. There's scaling involved. But basically, John Lennon either retuned his white piano, or his engineer did what I did with 528 radio. They recorded it in the standard tuning of A440, which was imposed. It's one of the Western world's, I think, most detrimental impositions. In 1938, the Rockefeller Foundation persuaded the British Standards Institute to institutionalize for the Western world the standard tuning in A440, which is dissonant. You know how some music you don't like, it's aversive, it's abrasive, it's annoying, right? Mm-hmm. It's distressing. Well, other music is soothing, relaxing, mm-hmm. and entertaining. So the frequency of A440 is dissonant to the vast majority of natural frequencies. So basically, that's part of the discoveries of the original musical scale. It's part of the subsequent discovery by myself of the perfect circle of sound, because everything in the universe, including we human beings, are vibrating and we are resonating in sync with one or more of the harmonics of the perfect circle of sound frequencies. There's 9 core creative frequencies to the creation of the universe. And the original musical scale, the solfeggio, is 6 of those 9. But when you follow the pattern, it gives you the full 9. I hope that makes some sense.
Well, yeah, and it's there. So you're saying John Lennon or any other artist? Do you think they know about 528 and they purposely tuned the piano? Was that something he knew to do instinctively?
Yes, and many engineers in the music world know about this. I'll give you another classic example. I think it was 2010 1917 when the album, the 444 album, came out. And that was all produced in A444 and in C528. So that's Jay-Z. Jay-Z did that. His engineer did that. His engineer was named No ID, worked for Capitol Records. And they produced the entire album in A444. The album's called the 444 album. And then, not to be outdone, Beyonce the next year, I think it was 2018, came out with her famous album, Everything is Love. Everything is Love. Now, that's my thesis. My thesis is that 528 is the core creative frequency of love. It resonates from your heart in that 528 frequency, just like a radio signal goes out in a specific frequency. If you tune away from that frequency, even 1/10 of 1 hertz, you get static. You lose the clear channel broadcast message. The same thing for your heart. Same thing for your heart in prayer. Faithful, loving prayer outputs that signal according to all the evidence that I've compiled in 528. Love 528. And it's really, there's so many other pieces of evidence and facts, science-based facts, indisputable, that compound to make it most reasonable. In fact, we must presume that 528 is the love frequency. And largely that's the new paper, the new science paper that I published that talks about 528 being the universal healing, natural healing constant. Well, of course, it's famous. Love is the universal healer. Music is the universal language. And water is the universal solvent. 80% of your body is resonating through water. It's a liquid crystal, superconductor of sound and light. It facilitates genetic expression. What's considered about 96% of the function of DNA, now known by science, 96%. Almost the entire administration of what DNA does is sound and light, signaling, frequency, resonance. And basically that's in science called cellular upregulation from genetic expression. It's also called epigenetics. And that whole field basically says that we're being remanifested in health, in normal resonant energy that's consistent and harmonic with the resonant energy of the entire universe. Because again, the entire universe is composed of principally 9 core creative frequencies, and then harmonics off of those 9 for sure. But basically, if you're engaged with nature, I'll give you another example. You know how important oxygen is, right? The breath of life. Yeah. Well, what frequency do you think oxygen is resonating at?
528. Wow.
At 528. Mm-hmm. How do we know that? Because it's obviously so. Because what color is chlorophyll that produces most of the oxygen we breathe? This thing called the breath of life, oxygen, this respiration, re-spiritualization. The spirit is energy. The energy is electrons resonating at certain frequencies and bioacoustic wavelengths. So it's all musical mathematics. Now that's God's language, is musical math. So we're actually breathing that color of chlorophyll, which happens to be at the heart of the rainbow. 528 nanometers of green light is at the heart of the rainbow, the electromagnetic color spectrum. And there's numerous studies, many of them republished on medicalveritas.org, that goes into the studies and publications of just shining green light on your body is therapeutic, powerfully so.
Interesting. So how far would you say this, you're talking about the the 60s and people like the Beach Boys and then later John Lennon from the Beatles. How far of this, for instance, we listen to, Beethoven or, the great masters and realize, I mean,
Yes,
I imagine they must have had some knowledge of it.
Yes, it goes back to the Baroque period, particularly. In the old days, before the Rockefeller cartel institutionalized the stressful poisoning and actually diseasing frequency currently being used throughout the world in Western music, primarily. Standard tuning, as I mentioned, is A440. That's dissonant to nature, really. It's a destructive frequency, partly because you see the F sharp note in that scale is the center note of the D major chord. So it's a major chord. It's played all the time. Is F sharp. It's called the augmented fourth or the diminished fifth in musicology, but it's also called in musicology the devil's tone. I kid you not. You can't make this up. It's very aversive. It's destructive. Actually, it's the only thing of the 9 core creative frequencies. It's a natural frequency for sure, but it is really dissonant. Doesn't get along with love, 528. It really causes.
What would an example of that devil's tone? What do you? Are there any music that we would recognize that might have used that?
Yeah. There's a very interesting phenomenon. When you hear emergency vehicles, they're going, yeah. They're going between 528 and 741. They're actually, basically inundating your body with both a good frequency, but at the same time countering it with a virtually demonic frequency.
Wow, who would think that makes it? Yeah, if someone in the chat room saying half the rooms in our house are green and clothes. I had no idea. I wear a lot of green typically. Well, so that's good to know. And that's is that the only color that has those properties?
Well, the chakra system, you see, in Oriental medicine, the heart chakra is, of course, green. As I mentioned, 528 resonant frequency, it's in sync with the heart of nature. That's why I have to conclude, what are the values of the heart? You have joy, you have love, you have faith. Faith is really vitally important. It's the key to having divine communication, having a spiritual consciousness, and really coherence. We're dealing with coherence. Means your resonant energy frequency vibration is consistent with God's or Jesus's vibration. It's a very, very beautiful, loving vibration. So you have faith, love, joy as values of the heart. You also have bravery, brave heart. Mm-hmm. So this basically deals with many of the social and even political aspects of looking at music. In the old days, in the ancient times, when you had a group with Aristotle, you had Plato, Pythagoras, Da Vinci, you had the Pythagorean mathematicians. They looked at the entire world and all of life as mathematics, and called, they even had a name for it, Mathese, they called it, Mathese, Mathese, which basically was a study of how everything is resonating musically, mathematically, and that's the creator's language. So if you really want to raise consciousness to the max and be all that you can be and be protected, because you see, in the Bible, the Bible talks about if the creator is for you, then who can stand against you? Nobody, nothing. You're protected. So if you are engaged on that level, I call it the zone of bliss. The zone of bliss. When you're engaged in that frequency, basically you're in tune with the creator, with the heart of nature, and it's sustaining.
This is fascinating stuff. So I'm like, for instance, we look at when I still hear. I hear something like "Hark the Herald Angels Sing," which is, I think, was Mendelssohn. It was based on his classical composition. Yeah. They wrote words. when I hear things like that, or something like Beethoven or something, these are just, I mean, it's almost like, how did anybody write them? It had to be like divinely inspired or something. So I guess that's what you might be saying. I mean, I love a lot of pop tunes too. I wouldn't put them in that category, but they do, really, they bring something out of you. Like when you're listening, when I listen to, Pandora or something like that, and I put on Brian Wilson's station or the Beatles channel or something like that, it does uplift my mood. There's no question about it. And do you think all of those things and do all those people know about 528? Is that,
In the old days, they
hi,
did.
Ellen.
For example, another example, Haydn, beautiful, beautiful, relaxing, spiritually uplifting music in Haydn's genre. His 96th symphony is called the Miracle Symphony. And it's gotten that name. Now get this. This is unbelievable. The Phantom of the Opera. You ever see the Phantom of the Opera play?
Not the play. I've seen the movie. I've seen the old Lon Chaney film, and I love that. But
Well,
it's silent classic.
In the Phantom of the Opera, it's actually a takeoff of what I'm about to tell you. Haydn's 96th Symphony, sources 96, that's 9 and 6. In the old Pythagorean math, you add the multiple digit integers. So here you add 9 plus 6, that's 15. Then you add the 1 plus 5, that gives you a 6. That's why the third note, the miracle note, MI 528, is MI 6. Now you've just diagnosed British Secret Service. How
I was going to say, yeah, MI 6, yeah.
But going back to Haydn and the Phantom of the Opera saga, you see, it's a story about Christine, who represents Christianity, who basically has the devil falling in love with her. And in order for her to escape enslavement to Satanism, she has to love. She loves Satan in the end. And that blows his mind. It blows his energy. Now what happens, that's the track, the music of the night. You remember that music? From the Phantom of the Opera. It's the main theme from the Phantom of the Opera. It's titled the Music of the Night. And the music of the night in the play, when that happens, the chandelier in the middle of the audience falls down on top of the audience. That comes right out of the Baroque period with Haydn's 96th Symphony, because it's reported, I wasn't there so I don't know for sure, but it's been reported that when Haydn played his 96th Symphony, the chandelier fell down right on top of the audience and nobody was hurt miraculously, which is why it's now called the Miracle Concert. It's the Miracle Symphony that Haydn produced. Wow. So, and anyway, these are just little pieces of information that actually are interesting. They're fascinating, but they actually support the greater thesis here. Because for Christina to fall in love with, basically, and give herself over in love to Satan, to destroy Satan, because Satan can't get along with love. Talk about
carrying. That's really that's carrying the ultimate of loving your enemy, but or love. They're talking about carrying it to that's the ultimate extreme there, boy.
Yeah. It's fascinating. It's extraordinary. So she was outputting 528, and he was operating in that 741 dissonance. It can't thrive. Now, stop for a second. Think about using this therapeutically in natural healing. Think about developing devices that can be used clinically or even for self-care in people's homes that vibrate in 528 and shine the color of 528 light. that love into the person who needs the healing. Now, that's exactly what I've done. If you go to my store, healthyworldstore.com or healthyworldshop.com, healthyworldshop.com has a free transformative application. In the equipment section, go to the equipment section, you'll see a green banner that says, turn your iPads and laptops into iRife frequency generators, frequency therapeutic generators for free. And that's what I do when I get sick or I need some additional therapy. I go to that website. There's two options for the audio. There is a straight 528 audio track. There is also a binaural where you have in one ear you have 528, the other ear you have the silver frequency. You see what I haven't said, what I haven't told you yet. Gold, pure 24 karat gold resonates in 528. That's been determined by solid science in the field called plasmonics. Plasmonics deals with the ether energy coming off of the elements in the periodic table. Gold and silver, the most valuable elements, are superconductors of sound and light and energy. And the gold has been now measured and determined to be 528. So now you go to the website, you choose the binaural, you can I hold my iPad and my laptop and play that audio track. My whole hands vibrate. My body starts to vibrate in that frequency. Now I'm sending that frequency of 528 and binaural 417. That's a harmonic of 528. That's silver. Silver's frequency is 417, which is also just below the solfeggio third note. So it's do, re, mi, and it's the re means resonance, fibris in Latin, resonance in English. So the 417 resonance frequency now is also going into my ears, and then I've got the screen maximally opened.
It's great because my audience is all black pilled, and the whole alt media is, and it's all negative all the time. And I get accused because I watched a lot of Frank Capra films, so I still had that little bit of optimism in me, waiting for the fairy tale ending. So it's great to hear.
I wrote the book of 528, Prosperity Key of Love. I'm claiming that 528 is the key to the house of David in Isaiah 22:22 and Revelation 3:6-8. That's an important key, because if you remember, King David played a soul-soothing, healing harp, and the key of the house of David would have had to have been used.
Yeah, no, I think we can keep talking for 2 more. I know people didn't want the show to end, but thanks, and I will definitely be in touch. Dr. Horowitz, I have to have you back on by Papa's Demand. So thanks so much. The great work both of you are doing. Thanks, everybody, for listening to I Protest. See you next week at the same time. Take care.